I love creating. I'm a creative person. I was a creative player, and that's the one thing. As me being a manager, I've always written everything. Like I always wrote everything down, but I never really like had a plan. I mean, the one thing that always amazes me is when I used to go for jobs, and people go, "Well, how do you play? How do you do this? How do you?" Well, I don't know. What team have I got? What players have I got? And that was one thing that people say, no, you must have a certain style. Well, of course I have a certain style of how I want to play, but if I don't have them players, right, then how am I supposed to be able to play that I want to play? You got to be able to be adaptive, especially at the start. As I've gone into an individual coach, I've looked at it a completely different ways, where I'm looking at movement patterns, I'm looking at body language, I'm looking at shifting defenders, and I'm only going through experience of what I got taught when I was younger. And I go back to even when I got taught how to strike a ball or the cross a ball, or the volley a ball. These things got broken down for me, like where my foot got, how my foot had to be placed, how my knee had to be bent, how my shoulder had to be pointed, and I don't know. I've always remembered it. And I knew how to do it, because one thing I could do in the game was I was a very good striker of the ball and a very good crosser of the ball. So when you put me in situation, I can tell when my wingers don't cross the ball properly. I can just hear by the noise of the ball. I can see by the pattern of how the ball slides across the grass, and I'll just go no. I'll just go no. I'll just go no. And then when they hit it perfect, I'll go, do you hear the sound? And then even now they're listening to the sound of it. So it's not about me having all this information and not sharing it. I will share anything with anybody if they're willing to learn. And I think that's the important thing. That's why I always say it's got to be a two-way street, because if it's not, then you're just talking to deaf ears. And don't get me wrong, I've got one or two players up there that are not interested. They will sit there and you do a drill with them and all that, and well, look, if they need anything, they'll come to you. But then you have the other ones that really want to learn, and you just put all your energy and effort into them.
I think for me, sharing the vision is about engaging people's both their heads and their hearts. I mean, what I learned early on is you could share all the data which supported your vision. My vision is for a much more gender equal world, a kinder, more compassionate world, a prosperous world for sure, but one where everyone has a place, everyone's valued, treated with dignity and respect. And to get people along on that journey often means that they need to shift. Now, I can put all the data about, the gender inequality stats, women are paid less, they experience more violence, they're sexually harassed more. All that data, that will never be enough. What I need to do is engage people's hearts. And I do that through the storytelling. It's the stories of human harm that are happening in this moment. If I can engage you on that, then I think you will be more likely to step up with me on my vision of a gender equal world. Because change usually happens not by taking a giant leap, it happens by adding to, continuing, adding more, all these small nudges, and really about healing the part of the world that touches you, that's around you. And to do that, you have to get proximate to the issues and listen to the stories, or what I call the other voices, the voices that are outside usually your remit. So to get people to come on board with my vision, I'm helping them get proximate to the human harm. I'm investing in storytelling. I'm engaging both their heads and their hearts, and then helping them see what part they can play in creating, creating this more gender equal world. And actually, I love the work that Hugh Mackay, he's written a lot, but his new book was on the kindness pandemic. And he said there, look, if we dare to dream of a more loving country, a kinder, more compassionate, more cooperative, more respectful country, then there's really only one way to turn that dream into reality. And that is that each of us must live our lives as if that country already exists. Because if enough of us do that, then that country will exist. And I love to, kind of move along in that vein to help others see that if we just shift a little bit and live in that way, then we will create this vision of a more gender equal family, nation, actually world. Yeah.
Well, for me, and that depends on the circumstances, whether it's family, whether it's business, whether it's the sport, coaching, all those different things, is always going in there and appreciating that we're all different. And the way in which people will approach certain environments or challenges can sometimes be different. Accepting that sometimes a preconceived idea on how things should be done, as opposed to being open-minded and being objective about other suggestions, I think can be detrimental. Now, you might always come back and you might come back to your own preconceived idea about a certain thing, but not having an openness and a willingness to explore and see that there are always alternatives out there. Progress is made by innovation and new things all the time. And one of the gross criticisms of me is Gazy sits on the fence. Gazy sits on the fence. He never makes a decision. No, Gazy doesn't sit on the fence. What I try to do is understand that, no, I've got an opinion, I've got a view, but I'm not going to dismiss someone else's view until I understand it, appreciate it, make an assessment on it and then go, nah, that's for me. I come into situations often with a predisposed position, but that doesn't mean you can't change. And I think that approach to leadership, I think, is really important. That there are times where I can be, as a coach, highly dictatorial. And that would fly in the face of everything I just said. But that's in that moment. So we've made a decision. We're going to run this play, and in order for us to have the best chance, we are running, and if you don't do it, I'm going to hold you accountable to that. Now, after we've gone through it, we look at the statistical data, we check out over a sample size, we've gone through all the process, and you've shown me and demonstrated, well, there's an alternative. Absolutely. Let's make that change, and then we'll incorporate those things. But a lot of, especially from a coaching standpoint, this is it. I'm doing this, come hell or high water, because I know it's been successful. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to teach you how to do it, and that is all there is to do with it. Well, there's a time and a place for that, but you also have to be open-minded enough to understand and consider alternatives.